Hi guys, this is Essie Bobo, the one, the only humble and faithful servant. And I just finished saying a million and one things with Mowa on the Million and One podcast. We spoke about family and social media and a lot of things that affect the borderline issues in these two realities. I hope you have a blast listening to it. Do enjoy.
Hi guys, you're welcome to another beautiful episode of the Million and One podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined with a very special guest. Like I always say, I bring you the greats, the best, the I don't know which other word to use. But I'm super excited for today's episode because we are going to be talking about something very sensitive. So wear your big girl pants, your big boy pants, and let's dive right into it. I have a very special guest, like I had mentioned. Like a wise man once said, I'm as simple and as basic as I come. And I I happen to be joined with that wise man. Please just go ahead and introduce yourself to the Million and One audience.
Hello, Million and One audience. My name is Essie Bobo. That's, well, at least off the record. But my official government name is Yusuf Esla. I'm a 400 level law student at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. And when I'm not reading cases of people from 500 years ago, I'm writing a lot of stories or articles, blah, blah, blah. Or I'm playing game. I'm talking about theology. Or I'm sleeping. So, yeah, basically, that's my life history.
Really? That's beautiful. So what have you been about, Yusuf Esla?
Essie Bobo. Well, these days I've been writing both legal and non-legal things and then playing Batman a lot. And then sleeping, Bible studies. Yeah, basically that's the cycle I think for this entire month. So that's what I've been about this video.
That's beautiful. So I'm really glad that you took out time to join me on this episode to discuss this very sensitive topic, family and social media ties. So first of all, do you have a family? I know everybody has a family, but do you have a family?
Yes, ma'am. I get family.
Do you have, aside your biological family, do you have people that you will call family?
Yeah, I actually do. A lot.
Okay, so what's a definition of a family? That's aside basic social studies definition, what would you define a family as?
Okay, so well, I'm not going to go too far from the social studies definition of what family is or dictionary definition. So as per where the three major components that make up a family are marriage, blood, or kin, I would just add experience with certain people that are not by any chance in this cycle or bounds of relationship. So basically, if there are things that ordinarily should be family members that should be there for you at those points in time, but these people take out the extra effort, they go the extra mile to do it for you or to be there with you in these spaces, then you have crossed the threshold friendship and then you become family. You need to be again not just blood. So unless maybe I'll go marry the person, but yeah, basically that's at least for me. So I'm adding experience now to the formula table of what family is to me.
So what examples would you say further explain this scenario you just printed?
Okay. You've been to school and it being red, like for me, it was very, very red. You know, the exam period is the reddest of reds for students in school.
Yeah.
And I have people that still go out of their way to make provision for me. They're like, oh, how far? I cooked today, come chop. And we all know that, well, Nigeria at this point is not exactly favorable for a lot of people. So those moments in my life when they had the choice of saying, may God provide for you. They went the extra mile and said, okay, I have 10 naira. Let's share it into 5. You take 5, I take 5. Then tomorrow comes, we think of how we'll know how we're going to settle tomorrow when it arrives. That kind of experience for me counts. It takes you to a different whole new level because you didn't owe it to me to actually go that extra mile, but you did. So yeah.
So have you made any of these friendships or connections via social media?
No. All of them were real-time experiences.
Okay, so how would you compare social media life or social media relationship to physical real life relationships?
Well, I think the major defining factor or the border factor for both realities would be that time. It would be time. I know this. My one a friend, a wiser man once told me that time is the test for pretense. It is time that
Wow.
reveals. So the longer I stay with you, it is that you can hide who you really are for a long time. So and social media is not as constant as what real time would afford you, because
Mm-hmm.
the energy to take you to type and to think of, if you have someone, it's just easy. You're just spilling it out. There's no barrier. There's no distance. There's no nothing. You're here with me here and now, and then we can say it all out. So I believe I'm not actually debunking social media relationships, but for something that is going to be long while and is going to be long lasting, or worthwhile rather, I think it's always safer to start from a real time. Or if social media is the basis by some circumstances, then you can proceed. But the real time has to come, basically. I don't the whole solely social
So it
media
can
thing.
either be first or it can come later, but there has to be
Yes,
some element of real life experience.
yes, it shouldn't be the complete foundation.
Hmm. Okay. So do you believe or do you think that there's a need to be two-faced, like a different person on social media than you are in real life?
Well, I'm a big person of vulnerability and honesty, and maybe that's why I'm not as social as a lot of people are on social media. Because there's when you read some people's comments, especially on the major platforms, you see a need for almost forced validation from a lot of people. It's almost like there's a reality I'm trying to fight, and if you see this reality or you see this struggle, you're going to laugh at me or you're going to think you're better than I am. So I'd rather you do not see it, and I'm going to paint up this face and show this to you, but this is not who I really am. So that's a very trending problem in our society today, which is why a lot of relationships either collapse or at the long run it becomes a disaster, and eventually again subsequently collapse. So there's that issue of two-faced, because nobody wants to be vulnerable and honest, and I can't blame them because it's social media. You don't know these people from Adam, so it's dangerous being vulnerable and honest. So it's better to play safe. Now you get yourself in quote. Let me put it as they say it out there.
Okay, so there's something I've been thinking about
Yeah.
for a while now, and it makes me wonder, why is it that people seem to be more open to people that they meet online than they are to friends and family that are around. So for example, I might be going through stuff, but I'll rather go on Google and ask, or I'll go to one group chat that probably no one knows me and ask, and I would want to take their advice as compared to me just walking up to a spiritual leader or a guardian or a parent or even an older friend and talking to the person.
Mm. I think it still stems from that issue of vulnerability and honesty. So, what social media does now, or what I'd like to think it does from my point of view, is that it affords you the opportunity to be who you want people to see, so that they give you a solution that you are fact that says human beings are only prepared to hear what they want to hear. So it's like I can be talking about something, but in now waiting in my mind, I go here. So everything you are saying, I can just be sieving out your necessary parts. So the social media gives you that. So I can come and say, oh, I'm going through this, I'm going to that, I'm going through this. Meanwhile, people in real life might know that, okay, there's something deeper to this that these people don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
Instead of coming to the people that would actually know the full extent of the issue, it's better to go to somebody. And there's something about stories. When you hear one side of the story, the first side of the story you hear is usually the side is usually the part of the story you want to side with. It's not until you hear both sides, then you're able to take an objective overview and say, oh, okay, this is who is actually wrong, but this is actually because of the issue. Social media, you only hear your perspective. So we side with you because it's only your side of the story we know. You get? So,
Yeah, I do.
uh-huh.
So funny
But,
enough, when I
okay,
no
yeah.
go ahead.
No, don't worry, go and continue.
Okay, so when I thought about this matter a lot, I figured that so here it is. When you do that in the whole going online to find advice and everything, I figured that people just take the information from the matter and then they run with it, and they do not include the emotional factor. So for example, I could just say I'm a bit sad today, but people do not know what my facial expression is like. They do not know what sadness looks like on me. They just take the facts and the information and they just run with it, and they do a whole head knowledge analysis.
Assumption.
But they do not, yes, they do not, with taking advice on social media, they do not come down to streamline the solution to you as a person. So it's just like, okay, this is what you should do in this particular scenario. Okay, so see now. Use your head. They do not look beyond the physicality of the matter. For some people, they never look at the spiritual aspect of the matter. They do not look at, it's not all encompassing. But if I'm having a physical conversation with you, I could see your body language. I could see how when you said that word, I could see how your eye twitched, or I am able to just basically look beyond your person. But when it comes to social media, we are limited to text and emojis, and I think that's not a very beautiful way to take advice. So like I said on the previous episode of the podcast, I'm not sure if it's the previous or the last two episodes, but I said how that social media is not social media can provide you with the resources to make a decision, but it should not be where you get your final decision from, because of course people just pick out elements from the matter. So you're about to say something before I interrupted. I'm really sorry.
I don't even forget it. But just to put a point on what you said, it's like the whole thing of interaction. Social media only affords the interaction of 26 letters on a white page, and there's nothing else to add to it. But real-time affords the interaction of full experience. The tone of your voice, the twitching of your eyes, the way your body shakes, the way your lips quiver, like all those things.
And if it is truth that you truly, truly, truly seek, you must be willing to be open and vulnerable and accountable. Yeah. So I believe that social media, like I said, social media only affords you the information on the subject matter. It doesn't allow you to be truly accountable on the subject matter. Do you get? Yeah. So that's that about that. I wanted to ask if there's any particular pain or experience that people celebrate that you have suffered in this life. Do you get?
Okay, like glorifying suffering.
Yeah, something like that. Because one of the things that spoiled this particular episode was the fact that I thought about it and I was like, okay, you know how people are trying to make their story sound sweeter, just so that it can gain traction. So there's this particular thing that I've noticed where people glorify their suffering. Of course, suffering is not, in some cases, it's not necessary, but they kind of shame you if you do not have as much bad stuff in your story. So, for example, in a society, this is just an example, I'm not saying our society is like this, but in a circle, in a society where it seems like, okay, everybody came from a broken home, this was father left, this was mother left, and then the people now rose to the top tiers of echelon or something like that, and then you come from a good family, and by a good family I mean your father, your mother, everybody is there, and then they saw you through everything. When you are sharing your story, it might be like, I did not come from a broken home. I'm trying to tweak my story to say, okay, my mother was not there as much, my father was not there as much, my siblings, you don't know what it feels like to be, just so that I can fit into a particular I can receive social pity, something like that. So that's where all of this is stemming from. That's why I thought to ask if there's any particular pain or experience that you've had that people celebrate.
Well, for now, not exactly. But on a general overview, I've seen this play out in a lot of fields. I've seen it play out in my school, how somebody gets a 2-1 or somebody gets a first class in another university, and my lecturers go like, oh, if you come to review now, when we suffer, you will know what it is to get first class. And I'm like, you make life unnecessarily difficult for people, and then it's something you are happy about. You know, it's a different thing if the circumstances that induce your suffering are beyond your control. It's another thing when you intentionally do this just so you gain traction or so that you feel important. And for a lot of people, that's both from our parent generation, which involves our lecturers, and maybe some of the people in our generation. I think it's a form of inferiority complex, because why would I want to glorify? It's like I'm trying to balance the scale of the glory with the suffering. So that means it's like saying, oh, this happened to me. and I did this and I went through this and then I became this, therefore that. Do you understand? So in a nutshell, by implication of that statement now, what you're saying is, so with the absence of this and this suffering, would you still have turned out like this? Because if we're saying suffering makes us who we are, then there's a fundamental problem. Why? What is the cause of this thing? Why do people... And the thing is, like you said, a lot of people say, oh, broken home, this, I turned out... Well, okay, but it depends now. I believe, from a point of view, that if I have that kind of experience, what I should see is providence. That throughout everything, God was able to sift me through, and then He brought me out proper. Because a lot of people have gone through similar things, and they didn't turn out fine. Which is also a scary thing.
Yeah, but why do you think people want to, even if your story isn't as bad, why do you think people want to make it look worse than it actually is?
Validation. We suffer. I think our generation has... I think a lot of people in our generation have a validation problem. Everybody is seeking validation. But
is it wrong to seek validation?
No. It's just, where are you seeking it from?
Okay.
Billions of people that do not know you or don't know the sound of your voice when you wake up, or from the 10 people that know you even on your worst days and they stuck around you. Because those people are fickle. Very, very fickle. Any little thing goes south with you, they are willing to detach. You've seen this in celebrities now. One little thing and then everybody drops their sponsorship deals with them. Boom. And at the end of the day, it might not even be their fault, whatever situation they are in. But you see, it's the presence of trouble that reveals the people that are true to you. And social media, like we said, is a place where you don't know these people from Adam. You meet here on the app. All we know is 26 letters and white pages until we decide to go off the grid and into real time. That is when the real relationship starts. That is where anything real. So real validation should even come from people that only like your comments and like your posts and have not taken the extra effort to know who you really are off your phone. I don't know if you get this thing. That's why I feel like a lot of people, like, there's a desperate crave for validation in this present time. And like I said earlier, it stems from... I just think we're finding it in the wrong place. I'm not saying validation is wrong, but I don't think we're looking for it in the right places either.
So what do you think the solution to all of this is?
Well, I think this problem stems back to the family, basically. How our parent generation had the issue of an identity crisis. They were taught to survive because they were born in a time where it was the Western culture versus tradition. So
you're talking about Africa or Nigeria now?
No, Africa now. I don't know. Nigeria is a case study because that's where we are, and most of the stories I've heard, it usually is... Well, I mean, I've never traveled out, or at least I've not traveled out yet. So basically, I'm using Nigeria now as a case study. For most of the stories, I've been able to interact with a lot of people, and I'm sure quite a few people will be able to relate. Let me just say, maybe in northern Nigeria, because I've never gone out, it would be that if parents, one of the two parents had an issue of, oh, we finished school, it's time for us to get married because they said so. Oh, okay, should my children learn how to speak their language? These nitty-gritties that a lot of them tended to ignore, I don't know. But I think there was an identity crisis from that time, and what they learned how to do was survive. It didn't have to be pretty. You just have to have one wife, children, and looked okay in society, but they were not sure whether they really were. And if you look back at, okay, from my own end now, I think my parents, my old people are, most of their generation are even happier than like our own old people, or my old people. I don't know how to put the English. What I'm just saying is that...
So you mean your great-grandparents are happier than your grandparents?
No. People from that dispensation are most likely, because the Western culture influence, the whole transformation, the whole shift didn't affect them. So life was more easier. Do you understand? So growing up now for our grandparents and our parents, there was a colonialism thing. So there comes a new picture now. And then there's the clash of who do we stand with? Do we stand with the ancestors past, or do we go with this new?
Or do you stand with this civilized, modernized way of thinking? I guess.
So I think that's where they had the crisis, and they didn't know the answer to that question, and they spent the bulk of their life trying to answer it, and they just ended up surviving the question without an answer. And then now we have families where children, or a lot of families where children don't know how to open up to their parents, or the parents don't know what parenting is. They just give it to children, and then they just follow the trend, or they follow whatever they see and then children still turn out wrong. I don't know if you see the kind of. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know who you are, first of all, then you don't know what you have to do. You don't know where you stand. You don't know. Without an identity, there is no purpose as to whatever it is that is involved. So the problem, like if family crumbles, then we as a people, as a nation, as the world, everything is already gone. There's nothing to stand on again. So, but for the African case study, like I was saying, well, for us, the identity crisis is a major. I think is a major. Maybe if I do more research, I'll be able to find out more. So that if we can go back to the drawing board and see where it went wrong. So if they survived and they did us a lot of wrong, I think we have to be the generation that forgives them. If not, this is going to be a cycle of repetition over and over and over and over again. So yeah,
That's so beautiful, very beautiful. Thank you so much. And I totally agree with what you said. Family is fundamental, and it's the foundation of society. And it's not just because it's cliche, but we've seen over time that it's like the bedrock. When all is said and done, when you go to the world and then you get your degree, you smash everything, you finish breaking all the records, at the end of the day, all you fall back to, when friends, when the spotlight, when fame, and when money is even gone, all you have is your family. When you mentioned something about identity, and family is not just people that are related to you by blood, like we've defined, but you mentioned something about identity, and I see a lot of people, and sometimes even me that is speaking, or well, before I used to be in that place where I sought for validation, or I sought for some sort of authentication from social media or identity. What do you think is the solution for people who, first of all, how do you even know that you are seeking for validation from social media? Then what do you think the solution is for as regards going back to family to seek for validation? Do you get?
Yeah.
Answer
Okay,
the first question, then we'll talk about the second one. Yeah.
So the first, how do you know when you're seeking for validation from social media? Yeah.
As opposed to your family or people that actually do know.
So usually it takes you doing something for there to be feedback. It has to be a cause before there's an effect. So I think if how you put a marker on yourself to know it. Okay, so when you do certain things, I'm not saying you shouldn't be eager for feedback or anything, but where the anxiety that comes, who are you more anxious to hear from? Your family or people that, and I think it also depends on what you're actually putting out there. If what you're doing is something that necessarily is professional or that's a different ball game, but if it's something personal or something that has to do with your own personal space,
your life,
your life, thank you, that's a different. So now this is where, so now in response to, so who are you eager to hear from? Maybe you put something on Twitter and then people are like, yeah, but your family is like, no, this is not who you are. This is not what, you know, in your mind now, maybe because you have 50,000 likes, you're not saying, Kai, but what if, you know, when that what if starts and you start questioning a founding or a long-standing relationship based on the numbers out there, I think there's a question mark. But then again, there has to be a cause effect from something to push you from family, because I think in any logical thinking person, there's the, like we said, the test of time is what reveals every form of pretense, Abby. So if I've stayed with you long enough and you see me as my worst, blah blah blah, I would always 99% of the time take your word over somebody that doesn't know me. But
that's in the case of a functional family. But so what do you have to say about a family that is not necessarily functional, in quotes?
Well, a family that is not necessarily functional, then that case, well, first of all, there has to be God in that equation, because that is a lot of work. And then from God now stems people who have shared similar experiences but found a right and proper way out.
So you mean a larger community, like a religious community?
Larger sound community. Emphasis on the sound, because it's one thing to be in a larger community that is still talking rubbish, or that is still going, or is deviating from the main points, or is losing their way too. So it's one thing to find a sailor that knows the way, and another thing to find a sailor that has never been on that particular ocean, because those are two different people. Both of them are sailors, but one is going in the right direction, one is going only God knows where. So for people that don't have functional families, this is where we have to come back to the drawing board. So why didn't it turn out like this? Why didn't it this? And the first step always is that they have to forgive whoever it is that has offended them in the bloodline, family line. Because if you do not, that vengeance and that anger that you're going to carry is going to affect you as a person, your identity and your success as you eventually stem forward. Yeah. So in forgiveness, then finding a safe space or a safer community that allows you to bring out these things and you table them, that allows you to take responsibility and keeps you accountable for your growth. And then from there, you now forge ahead and you move forward. It sounds easy, but it is not. I've had personal experiences myself, and I know from the first thing that the first stage is always forgiveness. Forgiving the people in their lapses of their roles, of not being accountable in certain areas. Because if you do not, there's a resentment that builds in you, and sometimes you won't know. And before you know it, you start exhibiting the exact same thing you hate. And most of the time, when you realize it's already too late and you've done the exact same, you become the monster you didn't forgive. So yes.
Quick question. How practical ways, because you said you've experienced that kind of thing, how do you heal from a dysfunctional family? How do you go past all of that? Because more often than not, people don't know that there are traces. It's like broken glass. This thing has injured me and I'm bleeding, but you don't know that you are bleeding. Do you get?
True.
How do you identify that you are bleeding, and how do you heal from the broken glass?
So, practical example. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, my dad wasn't always the best daddy figure growing up. I think growing up, we were terrified of calling him daddy. You rather just say sir, and stuff. So, at some point, I think I challenged him in the house, and then it got escalated. And then somebody said something to me. He said, "If you do not forgive this man, you are going to end up more terrible than he is or that he was." And here, I just imagine me beating my wife and my children. Like, God, no, I can't beat that monster. I thought I dropped it there and then. But what I actually did was just, I started the process. It was until 4 years later, I noticed that something happened, and because he started changing. But it was like I was now almost punishing him for the things he did because of the loopholes that he left in my own life. So I had to take a step. I had to pray, and I was like, God, what is it that I'm missing? Because I thought I'd forgiven this guy. But then, so what is wrong here? What am I not doing right? So I thought about it, and I was like, I have actually not let go of the hurt and the pain and the loopholes that have been left unfilled. So I had to go back to the beginning, start afresh, relive those memories, acknowledge that they happened. And then,
yes, actually, because I believe a lot of people, like for the longest time, I would just say, okay, it didn't happen, or you just pretend. You feel like once you pretend that it didn't happen, then it didn't happen. But you are bleeding. Do you get? So I think that's a very important point.
Yeah. So acknowledge that it happened, and the forgiveness took years. It took like 2-3 years. And the thing is, and you notice that the longer you stay in the process of learning to forgive, which by the grace of God, the better. It's like you take an aerial view, and then you see these people, or you see where and why he couldn't be what he couldn't be. And instead of anger, you are now filled with compassion. You are like, oh, so this is why it wasn't so. And then for me now, for the most of it, I'm trying to make amends for those places that have not been filled in. It doesn't mean that there are things that happen and the wound of, oh, maybe if I had this training, I would have done certain things as a man. I would have not fallen into certain things as a man. I would have been better as a man. Maybe I won't be as emotional as I am. I won't be this, I won't be that. But again, it still plays out to providence that God still directs everything to the end of it, at the end of it, to his glory point. I don't know if you get. So basically, acknowledge that it happened. Forgiveness, the process, and don't run away, because there were times I actually tried to run away from the issue. But is it that my mother called me back, or somebody that was family, which includes you, pulled me back and said, yo, this is a problem, come back, fix it. Now you see, this is the essence of having healthy people that keep you accountable and tell you, this is where you're messing up. Go back there and adjust this thing. If not, it's going to cause damage later. You get. So basically, that was how it happened for me. It's still happening actually. It's not actually even complete. So there are days I wake up and I'm like, this thing happened. Jesus, really? I'll just be angry. But then I have to remind myself. Then I remember to take the aerial view. And you see, that's the beautiful thing about aerial, because you see everything as it is. The thing with subjectivity is that you only see it from your eye point. So it's straight to face, you get. But from the sky, you are looking down on everything. So it's like you're seeing the blueprint. But if you're in the print, the only thing you're seeing is blue all around you now. You can't see the white lines properly. You can't see the big picture. So yeah, that basically, yeah, that was the whole route for me that I took, Sha, by the grace of God. So yeah.
Wow, this is a lot to just go back through and dissect. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for coming
My
on the
pleasure.
podcast. Where can our listeners find you?
Well, finally, I'm a very, very distant. I'm like one of those old hermits. I live in a cave. I hardly come out of my shell.
Where
So
can we find you on social media?
on social media, okay, social media.
You are really a hermit, though.
Yeah, SC Bobo or I am Ayenajei at Twitter. Yeah, Ayenajei, but I'm not even there
Can
on
you
Twitter.
spell it? What's Ayenajei? What does that even mean?
It means let us love one another.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Ayenajei, Ayenajei.
What language is that?
Baggy.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
Oh,
And
thank
on
you.
Instagram at where? At who
I am
rather?
SC Bobo.
I am Essie Bobo. Oh, thank you so much, Essie Bobo, for joining me on today's episode of the podcast. Do you have any last words? Sign out.
Honorable, honest, vulnerable people. Forgive, and then you forge ahead. And above all, the always constant factor is never leave God out of the equation. I think that's the most dangerous thing you can do. So, yeah, that's.
All right. Thank you so much. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, and at millionandone pod, or you send us a mail. Till we come your way next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.